everyone. Welcome to the show today. I'm very excited about our guest. Today we have Amy Ransdell with us. Amy is an executive performance coach. She's an active real estate investor mentor. She's a real estate agent trainer, investment strategist, licensed real estate broker, and brokerage owner. So an entrepreneur, a business owner. Welcome to the show, Amy.
Thank you. This is a total honor to be on here. I really appreciate this. You cover a topic and help an audience that I absolutely love. So excited. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. I think that, your experience, I can tell just from having chatted with you for a bit that you have a passion for the grind. And my listeners do too. My listeners are, they're young entrepreneurs. They're people that they want to make their lives better. They want to make the lives of the people around them better. And I just think that your experience, can add so much. So tell us a little bit about some of the businesses that you've been involved. Clearly, real estate stands out. And tell us about some of your hardships early on, if you can remember back. And it's hard for some of us to rewind the clock back to when we didn't know if we were actually going to make it. But can you go through some of that with us?
Sure, I can try to do that. I use the word grind, and there's two words that I love and I also don't love. So this might become kind of a theme as we talk today. And one of those is grind and one of those is hustle. There's this reality as entrepreneurs that we do have to be obsessed with what we're going after. We have to be obsessed with the why and the want and the purpose behind it, because there's going to be a lot of grind or work that's going to come with it. And a lot of times, we read the books with the big promises and we see people be successful. We sometimes don't think about all of the work that comes with that. But I also like to caution people that when you build around the concept of grinding and hustling, then you're building something that you will always grind and hustle. And is that ultimately what you want? And really in the beginning of your jump into entrepreneurship, ask yourself those questions. And if I could go back and go and save myself lots of pain, energy, and all the things and all the resources that I could have back, it circles around that, where I didn't design something really towards the goal of my higher intention of the lifestyle decisions that I wanted. And I just would go after things and grind and hustle, because I had this concept that as long as I'm grinding and hustling and I'm moving the needle forward, but ultimately maybe not moving the needle forward in what I wanted for my life. And so I was, that's probably my biggest thing. If I could think of some hardships early on, it was that running theme through all of it. So I wouldn't necessarily make great higher intention decisions sometimes, or higher purpose decisions as to where I wanted to move my businesses. That's one, but I could go through.
It's so crazy because I agree 100%. And I, as part of my morning routine every single day, I spend time imagining myself at different points down the road. Right. So I'll imagine myself this morning, 5 years down the road. I'll imagine myself looking in the mirror. I look a little older. Right. I can kind of really just make it really tangible. And then I'm going to focus on one of, the different areas of my life that day. Right. So if I'm focusing on my family, I'm seeing myself 5 years down the road. I'm having these conversations. I imagine my kids. I have a 3-year-old daughter. I imagine her 8. She's 8 now. And I'm having this conversation with her, and we're talking about things she's struggling with. And so I try to get that, one of the habits of highly effective people, 7 habits of highly effective people, is that they see the end from the beginning.
Yes.
Right. And so, but as entrepreneurs, it's so hard for me to say, okay, I'm going to put the day-to-day stuff that I have to get done. I'm going to hold off on the fires, and I'm going to spend time thinking about 10 years down the road, my bigger picture. How do the entrepreneurs do that? How do they incorporate that into a system?
And so I actually, I'll actually give you some tactical answers to that, to be quite honest, but I want to speak to it just a little bit first. It is essential to spend time visually and mentally and emotionally in the feelings of what your life will be like in its ideal state for you. Okay, this is really important. I said something very important. I said ideal state for you, not the ideal state of all the shoulds around us. Well, you should be this. My colleagues are doing that. Peer pressure to do this. The next shiny penny or squirrel in this next, click funnel program, or this, that, and the other. And I should go jump down this wormhole. And before you know it, you've got 20 million wormholes, and can't catch two rabbits. You only catch one, right? So if you are, we do that to ourselves, unfortunately. So the way to first tactically handle that issue is to spend a lot of energy very much in the future and feeling how it feels for you. And what is that, right? So like, if you're going to have a conversation with your 8-year-old daughter now, 3, now she's 8, in your future vision, what do you want her to say about you? Dad, you're never home. You don't spend time with me. Or do you want her to say something else? What is it? And by the way, again, there's no right or wrong. It's only what's right. But determine what that is very clearly, so that can become the filter of the how as it presents itself, going backwards and reverse engineering into all the things you're going to do now to move yourself forward. And by the way, it's not just the things you're going to do now, it's also the things you're going to say no to. Okay. And you said, hardships early on, another big lesson, learn how to say no very early. But how do you learn how to say no? You have to know what you want to know what you don't want. So, spend energy again in the future that you can. So like I do tactically every day in the morning. Some of the first exercises that I do every day is visualizations, just like you're doing, of my future. And I'm experiencing the emotion of the future. I'm feeling the wind on my skin, the colors. Is it hot outside or not? Like I'm literally living within the moment of my future as if my future is happening now, right? And testing whether it still feels good. Is that what I want, right? So that I can allow that to direct my intention for each day, from a micro decisions to the macro decisions, as to whether they're moving my needle forward towards what I want. All right. And so that's a daily thing. I always tell people right after that, my suggestion tactically, spend a moment really thinking about what challenges you're going to have that day. All right. Face the challenges. Don't not face them. Don't sugarcoat over them. Determine what they are so you can make some clear filter decisions for the day as how you're going to handle those to move the needle forward. And then remind yourself of what resources you do have, because everything you need at all times is all around you. And focus on who your champions are. Who are the people that you can reach out to help you move the needle forward. Do that every morning so that as you go through the day, it becomes very easy to filter away the shiny pennies and squirrels, because you're laser focused on the excitement of that future that you manifested for yourself and reminded yourself of that day, right? And it's a tactical exercise that primes your mind so that you literally live in the energy of your future all the time. People can be around me, and sometimes I forget that they don't understand that I'm literally living way out in the future in the present. And so they will, I get odd looks sometimes. They're like, oh, yeah, I forgot. You don't realize where I am. But I don't live in the present as much as I live in my future while enjoying the present. If that makes sense.
And it's funny because I was just on the phone about an hour ago with my marketing director, and we're creating a kind of spin-off company, integrating with one of our other companies. And I started talking to her about my vision for this company, and it got super granular. Like I was talking about the types of people that I wanted to fill these different roles in the different departments. And then I caught myself and I was like, it was just unnecessary for the conversation, but I had already seen it. I already know what the company's going to look like, even though I'm talking like 5, 6, 7 years down the road before we have those aspects of that company. And I didn't have that natural, I wasn't inclined to spend that much time thinking about where I wanted to be in the future when I first started in the entrepreneurial world. And I think there was a couple of reasons. One, I think I was definitely short on time, but I didn't know if it was the best use of my time. Two, I didn't really believe in it. I didn't think that it would like do anything for me.
Yes.
Right. I thought it was like, it was, frou-frou voodoo or whatever. I don't know what you want to call it, but then we get older. Right. and I've kind of been there, and then I've read enough books, and then I started doing it myself. And I'm like, there's so much good that comes from it.
Yes.
Right.
You know, we do. We sometimes think it might be kind of a hocus pocus thing, right? We're young and ignorant. I mean, we just are in the beginning, and at whatever age we start at, we're still young and ignorant in that place, that moment, at that time. And so we can only work with what we have at the time of what we have, right? And if we haven't had the complexity of experience ourselves to understand that these things help drive the needle forward faster for us, we won't necessarily believe in them, or if you don't believe them, you're not going to do them, right?
Exactly.
Behavior. But, you know, one of the things I will suggest to all your young entrepreneurs, and this is something that I'm very, very passionate about, is truly, truly finding those who have accomplished what you're accomplishing and model excellence. Really model everything that person is doing that's being successful at something similar you're doing. And it's their personal life and professional life. Really research into how they live their life. Do they meditate daily, right? Do they work out every single day? You know, how committed are they to their health? Like, really pay attention to all the things, because all of that is a picture of why they're probably being successful at what you're wanting to be successful at. And then break the learning curve a little bit and start doing the things that they're doing, right? I mean, if I want to go be an Olympic winning athlete, I'm going to go and study other Olympic winning athletes, and I'm going to do everything that they did at the least, and then more, right? And so we want to do the same thing in business. And I think a lot of times we just get excited about an idea, like, well, I have this great idea, it's awesome, nobody else has this idea, I can crush it, and we go after it, but we forget to realize that the wheel was invented a million times. So great, if another guy knows how to build a wheel, then go and follow that. So you don't have to have as many painful lessons along the way, and you'll have greater success faster, right? It's why reading books is so powerful. And I always tell people, read books about other business owners. You know, Good to Great, great book. Go pick that up if you haven't read it. Like, really pay attention to what other people have done who have succeeded at a high level in business.
Yeah, I love this advice, and I get asked about mentors a lot, and I'm gonna touch on that, but this concept of, you know, finding that model and doing what they do. There's so much that I've experienced in this, because it has to be the right match. I think that's a big part of this, because then you start to see like, oh, they go to the gym every day. Okay, that actually fits with me. I already go to the gym every day, right? Like, that's okay. So I've got that, like, okay, what else? And then you find out that there's these things that, you know, you may not associate with their high level of success, but it works for them. And then you pattern your life, and you do a lot of the things that they do. And it's like, it just kind of clicks, right? Because especially if you're picking the right mentors.
Absolutely. And you know what? I would say that to somebody. So those of you that are doing that, there's so much gift to give yourself, to acknowledge and affirm, like, celebrate your achievements. And so celebrate every little achievement along the way. And if you can find a mentor and you're doing something that they're doing, you're like, oh, I'm doing that. Oh, I must be on the right track. Great. Take a moment to neurologically celebrate that, so that you'll continue the behavior, right? When you celebrate good behavior, right, then your body will want to do it again, right? And so autonomically, and that's what you want to do. So I love that. Yeah.
And, you know, speaking of mentors, people always ask me, like, hey, how do I get somebody to mentor me? Right. How do I, like, well, that's complicated, because if it's somebody that's worth their time, and it's not that they're bad people, they're busy. You're not the only person that's asking them to mentor you, you know, or mentor them. And so you have to get creative. One, you know, if there's somebody and you want actually some of their time, you're going to have to provide value in some way. Okay. Absolutely. And it's your job to figure out how you're going to provide the value. It's not them. It's not, hey, I'm going to go. I have people reach out to me. Hey, Allan, I want to work for you. And I'm like, well, what can you do? What, you know, cause I'm not going to, if you want to work for me and you want to work in my digital marketing space, but then I have to train, that kind of defeats the purpose. Right. And so it's your job to go to them and say, hey, this is something you lead with it. Hey, this is what I can do, and I'll do it for free. And I'm very good at it. Another thing is, the mentor doesn't need to know that they're your mentor. Read their books.
Yes.
Some of my great, you mentioned Good to Great, Jim Collins. He is, and I've said this before on previous podcasts, he is one of my mentors. Never met him, never spoke to him in my life. I consume everything that he writes, all of his videos. He is my mentor. And the nice thing is that he doesn't have a decision in the matter, right? And so there's so much information out there.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of watching YouTubes of, cat videos or people falling, watch YouTubes of your mentors, right? What are they saying? What are they doing? And consume their books, consume everything they do, watch their live videos. And you get this, we live in an incredible time where this wasn't available 30 years ago. Right. And so, I mean, via books it was, but via social media and all these videos, it just wasn't. And so to get a mentor, it's not that hard.
It's not. It's not. All it takes with you, whoever's listening, is an obsession.
Exactly.
Right? About being better and better today than I was yesterday, and tomorrow than I was today. And how are you going to do that? You're going to go do that by consuming the information that's going to help you be better, because you've chosen to be obsessed with being better at it. That's all it takes, because now everything's at our fingertips. People ask me, how do I do something? And I look at them and I say, Google. Like, you don't anymore. We didn't have that. I was just telling my kids, reminding my children the other day, I says, when I was in college, I didn't have a cell phone. I didn't have a computer until my junior year. I stood in line outside of a building to use a computer to type a paper. I come from right, literally. And I come from a very different background. I says, nowadays, when you want to know how to do anything, Google. And the answer is right there. It's unbelievable.
It's crazy. And Amy, I think it's a double-edged sword because it's available, but it requires work, right? So people think, well, if I have a mentor and I go into his office, then he's going to tell me what I need to know.
What
and it's like,
he's going to say, get the hell out of my office and go find a solution. Most mentors, in fact, there's a huge difference between mentoring and coaching, for example. A mentor, they're not there to be a place to listen to your whining or for you to come to problems with. They're there potentially to help you and ask the right questions for you to come to a solution. That's really what they're generally for, if they're even being interactive with you in that way, right? Most mentors are simply there to be maybe a sounding post, maybe just somebody for you to mirror what they've done, like you describe a Jim Collins who doesn't even know he's your mentor, right?
Doesn't exist, yeah.
Doesn't exist. So it is. You have to understand you still have to do the work. And if anybody's listening to your podcast, you were kind of describing like where most of your listeners are in their path of entrepreneurship. At this point, you probably have learned that there is work to be done. There is no overnight success scenario. There really isn't. And even the ones that we think look like an overnight success, they absolutely weren't. And if anything, that's a great thing you can learn from mentors as well, is go and read their stories. How many times did they fail? How many times were they rejected? How many times did they have to get up and try again? How many times did they have to start over? Like, those stories are there. I love when I read about someone I highly admire and I find out that somewhere in their path, they might have filed bankruptcy, or somewhere in their path, they had shut a business down, because people think, well, then that's a fail point, we should give up. But they didn't give up, right? So if anything, they'll learn the tenacity and the commitment that they had to their obsession, right? Like there's just so much to be gained from that. But from a value interchange perspective, I'm with you on that. Make sure that if you're going to talk to someone, present to someone directly about being a mentor for you, understand that you do need to offer them something. There has to be something. And by the way, being someone like you are that's asked that all the time, I'm looking for that early in the conversation. That says a lot about their intent, their character, and how committed they are to what they're wanting to do with me, that they have even thought about that in advance of the conversation. And it still doesn't mean that I will say yes or that I can, right? But I'm looking that that they've thought about that before they even approached me.
Yeah, 100%. I have a friend, very, very successful in business, and has great connections. And early on, when he was trying to get his start, he had this guy picked out that he wanted to, look to as a mentor, wanted to get some of his time. But he didn't just go to him and say, hey, I need, 5 hours a week. He found out that he was obsessed with his son's football team, right? This guy had a son that big into football. And so we hired a professional photographer and had the photographer take all these, professional, nice photos of his son. And then he sent it to this guy. And he's like, hey, I know you're busy. I know you've got a lot going on. I had a buddy take some photos. I thought you might enjoy these. That was the first contact.
Perfect. That was perfect. And those of you that are listening, okay, again, entrepreneurs, we're all in sales, whether you want to call yourself that or not, you want to put that title on and that hat on, I don't really care. You are in sales. And one of the things that we learn about in sales is exactly that, right? It's like really paying attention to what means something, what feels good to whoever it is that we want to interact with in our business, right? And then allowing that to drive it. Like I was just talking to someone the other day that found out that one of the prospects that she's been trying to build a relationship with, their child just got accepted to a college. It's kind of a big deal. They just happened to say it kind of offhand. So what did she do? She went and bought a coffee cup with the college information on it and put up together a little care package for her to give to her college, her soon-to-be college attending child. And it meant so much to this prospect that she remembered that fact about her and then took action on it. That's just, again, very powerful, good, just business reminder that you just brought up for everyone. I think is key, right? We do it all the time in our sales, even in an email reply, where we bring up something personal.
Yeah. And it's the same thing with customers or clients. It's not their job to find a reason to do business with you. It's your job to tell them over and over and over and over and over why they should do business with you. And it's the same with a mentor, right? And if you're an entrepreneur, you're going to have to learn this concept, at some point. That is your job. So you have to bring that value to the table. And I love talking about mentoring because it's been such a huge aspect in my life. I've started reading. I came from a small farming community and people didn't really leave. There were 2,000 people. There's one stoplight. Yeah. I graduated with 60 people. And people didn't really leave. They stayed and worked on the farms, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I wanted something else. And I didn't really have somebody to show me the way. And so I just started reading books. And then the more I read, the more I realized I could accomplish. And the more that I saw people were doing it motivated me. And mentors can be a double-edged sword because you can start to see some of those flaws like you were talking about. And some people are, they'll see those flaws and they'll be like, I mean, you have such a great outlook. You're like, hey, they overcame these issues. And some people are like, oh, really? That kind of like, XYZ, whatever, and kind of becomes disenfranchised with them.
Uh-huh. I see that as well. Absolutely. And by the way, I come from a similar small town.
Do you?
There was like a party when we got a flashing light. Like it was a really big deal. So I remember that. But you're right. Some people, it does jade them the other direction to hear about. And so I want to encourage everyone that's listening, allow yourselves to understand that there are better lessons sometimes to be learned for how people overcame challenges than for those who either claim they never had any, okay, or never have experienced those. And in the real estate world right now, for example, a lot of people have jumped into real estate in the last few years and they've been hyper successful. And people like me are 20-year veterans in different niches of the industry. I feel like I'm much more prepared for anything that's going to come because I've had to deal with shifts in the market, things going wrong, things turning inside out and upside down. And that's taught me better decision-making strategies and the tenacity necessary to move forward. I do an exercise with a lot of our program members here for the Powerhouse program, which is entrepreneurial coaching support. And I do this whole exercise about potholes. Like a pothole is an exciting thing. Right. And everybody looks at me like, what are you talking about? I'm like, yeah, like you're moving, you're driving down the highway, things are going great. And then there's this huge pothole, right? You have a choice, man, this is exciting. I can build a bridge over the pothole. I can jump over, I can go to the left, I can go to the right, I can go climb down in it, spelunk down in there, and then climb my way back up the other side. There's so many cool and exciting things I could do with a pothole. And you put them through this whole creative process of coming up with this unlimited list of all the things that you can do with a pothole. And all of a sudden we start to realize how empowering a pothole is, because it enables us to realize where we might want to pivot in our business that we would have complacently never even addressed if we hadn't had the pothole present itself. And I think with mentors, I think that's one of the most powerful things we get from a mentor is that somewhere
Exactly.
on their path, they had to experience potholes and they had to come up with
Exactly.
creative solutions around them. And they didn't quit and they didn't give up and they didn't just crash into the pothole and die. They kept moving forward. And it's those lessons. It's learning where the potholes are on the road, where are the alligators in the swamp from other people who've experienced them, because life will bring you challenges. And as entrepreneurs, you are going to face challenges. Please do not tell yourselves you won't. Is one of the biggest disservices you can give yourself. Challenges are exciting, they're fun, they're opportunities to learn new things, expand in different directions, meet new people, everything positive. Every challenge is working for you, every single one of them. But you've got to make the direct choice to decide that they are working for you and allow them to be a lesson in a great direction. And sometimes even closing your doors entirely and starting over again is one of the most powerful gifts you could give yourself. Like, no joke. And those to me are the best mentors, the ones that learned those lessons and did something powerful with it.
Yeah. And it's funny because entrepreneurs, just like most people, we kind of have our heads in the clouds a little bit, and we think, oh, well, yeah, other businesses fail, but mine won't, or other businesses face this or that, and mine won't. But it's those moments. And you know, I'm trying to frame this in the right way, but COVID isn't 100% bad.
Mm-hmm.
There are companies that are stronger now.
Yes.
Right. There are a lot of companies. There are, a lot of employees are benefiting from staying at home, having more flexibility with their work, all these things that before we said was impossible, and it became possible because it had to. And I think from our challenges, there's just, and it sucks going through them. It does. It sucks being slowed down by something. But when we look at the mentors that we have in our lives and we see what they're accomplishing, and we're seeing, hey, man, they're human and they did these incredible things, I can too. I think that's fantastic.
It is. And I want to say something about the COVID thing too. I'm actually really, this is going to, again, I'm worried about framing as well, but like some of the data that will come out of this couple of years, that to look at it 10 years from now, it is unbelievable, really, some of the pivots that companies have made that have had the biggest lessons about human behavior, about work performance, about, the culture of their company and where their company was failing in its culture. And now they realize where they can fill those gaps that they would have never even noticed or paid attention to until all of a sudden the world had to be operated differently, right? Some of the best inventions, some of the best programs, some of the biggest, coolest, most amazing things have come out of this year and a half as companies found creative paths to deal with these big shifts in our environment, right? So I again, embracing it. Now, I'm going to say this is also just called the elephant in the room, that there are, many, many people who were hurt horribly by the COVID scenario. But a lot of times for a lot of people, it was that they weren't prepared to look at it as, how can this make things work for me? The restaurant industry, for example, I know a lot of people who were crushed by COVID. I know a lot of restaurants in the same exact markets where they had the same shutdown rules that thrived. Because they decided to see, they pivoted, they decided to say, well, how can we make this work for us? We have this equipment, we have these resources, we have this, we have this, we have this. How can we make it work for me? And they have bigger and stronger businesses now, right? I know a guy who's tripled the size of his restaurant holdings company through this, whereas other people went the other way. And so a lot of it comes down to, really, it's a mindset thing. It's, how obsessed and committed are you? Are you willing to be realistic about the challenge? Because you have to be realistic about it.
Right.
How creative and excited are you to move forward in a direction that can sustain your goal? And it might mean that the path to it's going to change, but that doesn't mean that the goal itself for your life has to change. And so I think that was where the kind of men and the boys got separated.
Yeah, 100%. And the thing is that, if we could rewind time and decide we had the power to not let COVID happen, of course, right? But that's kind of the epitome of challenges. And we're going to have challenges in our businesses, especially in the startup phase, man, especially when you're getting going. And that's a foregone conclusion. The only question is, what are you going to do about it?
Ooh, right? Yeah. the most important word in my opinion, in that sentence is do. What are you going to do about it? Okay.
Right.
Do is such a big word, guys. Do
Right.
better, like tattoo it on yourself somewhere. I always tell, my team will tell you here, if there's 2 words I could tattoo on my team, it would be intention and consistency. But what does that come down to? Do, right? I'm going to do
Right.
everything with intention consistently. All right. And so give yourselves that gift in your businesses, because you're right, especially in the startup phase, we're exponentially learning who our avatar is, what they respond
Yep.
to, what they're going to bite on, not who's going to buy, who's not, who's going to resonate with our message, where's our tribe. Like all these things are happening in the startup phase. And at the same time that all of our environment is shifting around us in crazy ways, because our family, our friends, everybody's like experiencing a new you as you go after a different direction, and this crazy obsession that they may or may not agree with. And we're having to look for new resources, and we're reading new things, we're experiencing new things. Your whole world is changing when you're in the startup phase, and it's a powerfully awesome place. But I also know how crazy it can feel. It's like putting an emergency brake on the car when you're going 65 miles an hour and you're spinning. You're like, oh, okay. But it's such a great place to have so many great things come from that. We mentioned earlier a lot of companies and how they pivoted with COVID. At Riva Global, which is one of the companies that I'm the CMO for, we're a virtual assistant company. We watched every one of our clients. You talk about, we had hundreds of clients all of a sudden in a pivot decision, right? And helping them figure out how to go through that. Like I think I had more conversations with entrepreneurs than I ever have in those first couple of months of COVID, and really felt with them the feelings of startup phase. And now all of a sudden they're like, well, I don't have, my employees won't come in because they're afraid of getting COVID. And these questions. We'll go, how do we reset things? And it can be empowering if you look at it that way.
Yeah. I love it. Well, I mean, I wish we had another, couple of hours to talk about this stuff. Things I'm very passionate about, challenges and finding a mentor, and kind of going through this process of, getting punched in the face as you're opening your business and getting rolling. So, well, it's been a pleasure. Where can people find out a little bit more about all the great things that you're doing, Amy?
Oh, awesome. I would love to connect with as many of your listeners as possible. You can find me on Instagram. It's Amy Ransdell, Be Powerhouse, or reach out to me through Riva Global. If we're a virtual assistant provider for entrepreneurs. That's what we do. We help entrepreneurs scale efficiently with talented, skilled team members. We are not like a contract for hire, like Fiverr.com or something like that. We actually provide you full-time, part-time, or full-time team members for your business at fraction of the cost of hiring somebody locally, that are highly skilled, educated, amazing individuals. So it's fun. I get to work with entrepreneurs every day, and we really enjoy that. So check out rivaglobal.com. We're also on social media platforms as Riva Global. And then me personally, please find me on Instagram or Facebook, send me a private message. If I can be of support or a resource or referral myself or the best team member to do that, will absolutely help. Okay. Love it. Thanks so much for joining us today, Amy. Thank you. I so appreciate this. This is like a topic near and dear to my heart. So all of y'all listening, keep going. Go after it. Don't stop. Love it. Thank you.
If you have enjoyed today's podcast, please leave us a rating. And for daily inspiration and business tips, follow Allan on Instagram. Until next time, remember, we build the future one entrepreneur at a time.